one and all, and listen to tales of excitement and adventure. Tales of daring heroes, savage monsters, and bards who just couldn't keep it in their pants. Tales of friendship, nobility, drunken foolishness, and unforgettable fun. These are tales of role-playing games, fair listeners, and this is Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Danishes and Dragons, your RPG morning show. My name is Ryan Howard. I am your host and king of the Boneheads, and today we are going to do a little bit of campaign planning, a little inside look into my process for planning out this game that I'm getting ready to run, and that is the second season, if you will, of my Dark Sun game. So we are once again going to be grabbing our obsidian swords and walking into the magic-destroyed plains of Athos. But first, we should have coffee. Because we should always have coffee, despite the fact that Dark Sun has very little water and it's hot all the time, we should still have coffee. I guess we should just have iced coffee this time. Even though, again, water's very scarce, so ice probably isn't much of a thing. I could not live on the world of Athos, and neither could you, so there's that. Anyway, before we get into some campaign planning, just real quick, the breakfast portion of this show is going to take a bit of a hit for a while, because right now I'm on a pretty extreme diet. Basically, I'm trying to get in shape this year. Really trying to get in shape, really trying to undo all the damage I did in 2021. Anyone who watches this show regularly could see, even though you're just seeing my face, you could see the weight gain happening as the world and myself descended further and further into madness. So, kicking off the year just trying to undo all that damage and, continue on the journey I was on before all of that happened. So, I'm working with a trainer right now. He's got me on a pretty strict diet, which means that pretty much every morning I am eating 4 egg whites, 2 eggs, and 2 pieces of turkey bacon. I have had that breakfast every day since Monday. And it's a challenge to find different ways to prepare that. And I say it's a challenge like I've actually tried. I currently have not tried because pretty much what I've done is mix them all together, break up the bacon into pieces, put it inside the eggs, and eat it that way. And it's good. I mean, it tastes fine. I can season it with whatever I want, which is awesome. But yeah, that's been my breakfast for the whole week. I'm looking forward to being able to expand that a little bit. A lot of this diet has... One second. All right, we're all good. All good. Just a little bit of morning congestion. Anyway, a lot of this diet has really kind of pushed the limits of my ability to make the exact same food every single day taste different and distinct. Oh, good morning, Loopy. So I figured it out with, mostly I'm eating like chicken and rice in the afternoons. I figured it out with that. I figured out how to make avocado and quinoa for dinner. Taste distinct, taste differently. There's different sauces and stuff that I'm able to use, which, makes things a lot better. I bought some hot sauce and some salsa so I could try adding that to breakfast. That's definitely what I'm going to do tomorrow. The Cholula Verde sauce is delicious, so I think that would go good with the eggs. So I'll be giving that a try. But at some point, I will be able to expand my food beyond just that. And from there, hopefully, we'll be able to continue doing that. And Elfie, I will use the stuff that we have in the fridge too. I just wanted Cholula because I like Cholula. And the stuff that we have in the fridge is habanero, which is good, but on the extreme side. So, the one thing that has not changed is, well, Elfie, the other one's ghost pepper. So, there's that. The one thing that has not changed, though... another aspect of this, you may have noticed this on Monday. I'm not drinking right now. I have to not drink for a little bit. So, no whiskey for me on Mondays. But one thing that has not changed is I am still drinking an obscene amount of coffee every morning. I got the pour-over pot for Christmas from my parents. So anyone who knows me from work is now shaking their head that the French press guy is not drinking out of a French press. But I still have the French press. I haven't gotten rid of it. Maybe someday we'll get back to it. But for now, I am enjoying my... Oh, that's going to be a problem for you. Loopy, who told you that you're not allowed to have Dr. Pepper? Was this like a doctor's decision, or was this your friends staged an intervention and said you were not... Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. The new year is always filled with changes and differences for people, and a lot of times it comes down to diet. And yes, that's true. Kroger does make Dr. Pepper flavored seltzer water, and I don't know if it sounds like a lot of the problem there is the acidity, especially when it comes to the dentist side of things. So I don't know if this is a solution that'll work for you. But there is there's a soda called Zevia. Oh, if it's the sugar, then Zevia will work for you, unless you don't like stevia. But they make sodas that don't have sugar, they don't have any calories or anything like that. And they taste pretty good, and they have a Dr. Pepper equivalent that's actually very good. So that might be an option for you if you miss your Dr. Pepper. I don't think they have caffeine either. Although they might. But they've got a cream soda that I really like, and when I stopped drinking soda and, was looking for mixers in bourbon, I bought their cream soda because bourbon and cream soda is actually very, very good. For anyone who has not tried it, the vanilla works together there. Yeah, if it's your main source of caffeine, then I do not envy the headaches that you've probably been having. Although, coffee is pretty good. That delightful sound. And as always, I am drinking Press House coffee, although right now I'm drinking a bit of a blend here. And I have a new flavor from Press House. That's fair. That's fair. I know a lot of people... There are certain coffees that the flavor is... That's true, because coffee is naturally caffeinated, and Dr. Pepper is... I believe there's caffeine added to it. But, as I was about to say, Elfie does not like dark roast coffee. I love dark roast coffee, and in my opinion, if a coffee is too light, it almost becomes a little too acidic for me. So, different roasts of coffees, different types of beans will do different things for different people. If white bean coffee is hard to find around here, I definitely understand that. I've not actually looked for it, and I don't know if Press House has it. I could actually look at that after the show goes off for you. Because I love me some Press House coffee. But I'm drinking their Cup of Joe blend. Oh, nice. White coffee is less acidic than regular coffee. That is good to know. I'll have to look that up and find some and try it on the show. But yeah, what I'm drinking from Press House today is their Cup of Joe, which is basically it's like their standard cup of coffee. It's their standard coffee bean. And I also, because I'm a monster, mixed in some Jungle Jimmy's espresso. I believe it's called the Gorilla Espresso from Jungle Jimmy's. And it's good. It's really good. I mean, the Cup of Joe by itself is very good. The Jungle Jimmy's espresso is also very good. But because I am such a bean fanatic, I just had to mix the two together. And Loopy, that sounds very, very interesting. The longer roast at a lower temperature, kind of an earthy flavor to it. Yeah, I'll need to look that up and see who sells it, where I can get it, and how much it will cost me to get it. I might have to wait on pulling the trigger on the coffee because Elfie and I are about to move, and I am currently swimming in coffee beans. When you develop the reputation that I've developed for, being a coffee drinker, around Christmas time, whenever people are looking for, just a inexpensive, here's a thing that I know you like, I'm going to throw this in your stocking, or I'm going to throw this in a bag with some other smaller things, I get a lot of coffee. And on top of that, I get Press House pretty much every month. So I've got, all the coffee in the universe in this little tiny cupboard in the kitchen, because we have a small kitchen. And we're moving in about a month, so... Absolutely. If we need some assistance, and, chances are we might, I'll let you know. Thank you for offering, by the way. So, that's the breakfast talk done and dusted. I do love talking about coffee. So yeah, let's move on over to some screen share and take a look at some of the stuff that I am planning for Season 2 of Dark Sun. Alrighty. So, what we're looking at here to begin with is a map of the tier region and a little bit beyond the tier region of Athos. And before anyone says anything, yes, I can zoom in here, and I will do so in just a second. This is the world of Dark Sun, as it were. This is where pretty much all of the adventures are set. My adventure... Here, I'll go ahead and zoom in. Just to give you guys a recap, we can take a look at this map. Just while I recap the events that have happened so far. Because this is not a game that I stream or anything like that. This is just a game that I run for my friends on Wednesdays. So what we're looking at here is the tier region, explicitly the tier region. And the game began up here in the city-state of Uruk, which is a very militaristic, very like religious and military combined together. It's basically the Sparta of Athos. And for anyone who doesn't know, Athos is a world that was completely and totally ravaged by magic. In this setting, the casting of magic requires drawing energy from the earth because, magic is the force of creation, all that kind of stuff. And so you're literally having to pull power from the earth. And what happened was, people figured out that if they didn't do this responsibly, they could wield massive amounts of power. These people became the Sorcerer Kings, and they created what was basically called defiling. So, you would be standing in a meadow filled with flowers, and, you cast you cast a fireball. That's like a third level spell, I believe. You cast a fireball. Maybe it's a fourth level. And because you cast a third or fourth level spell, I apologize for not knowing which, the area around you for 500 feet, let's say, because the rules vary depending on your system. The area around you for 500 feet, all of the flowers just die and the grass withers up, and you just have the circle around you of dead foliage. And you're able to cast your fireball. Well, what happened was these Sorcerer Kings basically started taking over the world, and as they did so, they were throwing around massive amounts of magic, exterminating different races. So basically, you start with a D&D world. There are conspiracy theories that the world of Athos is the same world as Dragonlance, but Sorcerer Kings took over. That hasn't been confirmed or anything like that. But, the Sorcerer Kings started wiping out, the orcs, the gnomes. They tried to wipe out the dwarves and the elves as well. And so throughout this entire, genocide of all these different races, they just kind of destroyed everything. And so the majority of the world is this giant desert. The ocean, or one of the oceans, is now called the Silt Sea, and you can see it over here. This is actually going to be or the Sea of Silt. This is going to be very important for our game here. It is now a sea of silt, like hard-packed sand. It's not water anymore. There's no water in it. And so it's gross and weird, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens there. And because of this kind of magical desecration, there's all these weird mutations that have learned to survive on Athos. And every person has some amount of limited psionic ability. Now, I say everything and every person. Literally everything has some kind of psionic ability. Plants have a kind of limited psionics. All the creatures have some manner of psionic power. And as a consequence of the world being defiled, metal is also a very scarce resource. So, having a metal sword is equivalent to having like a +1 sword. And it's equivalent to having a +1 sword in like a low magic game. It's a super rare thing. And it's not something that everyone can get. Although in my game it tends to be something that everyone has because typically you want your players to be very powerful so that they can survive all of the nastiness that you throw at them. And yeah, this is like an older map. I believe it's based on like a 2nd edition map. That's where a lot of this comes from, so... there is that. Now that I've explained Athos for, I believe, the fourth time, let's go ahead and kind of track the path of the last campaign. So, the campaign began in Uruk, and they were sent on a mission by one of the merchants' guilds to escort a caravan from Uruk over here in the mountains to a city-state called Tyr, which for some reason is not labeled on this map, but that's Tyr over there. And so along the way, they weren't told, what the package was or anything like that. They were told it's very precious cargo. Don't worry about what it is. Just take it where we told you to take it. And so they do so. They take it, and they get almost to Silver Springs here, and they're ambushed by a nightmare beast, which is almost like the Tarrasque of Dark Sun. It's this big, giant, crazy powerful psionic creature that just kind of rips them apart. And it kills most of their caravan, and the players all survived. This was by design. The players all survived. But over the course of their journey that far, they discovered that the package they were delivering was actually a person, like a 14-year-old boy. And once they were ambushed by the Nightmare Beast, the 14-year-old boy revealed himself to be a new Sorcerer King. Someone who was powerful enough to do the kind of magic that only the Sorcerer Kings could do. And he fought the Nightmare Beast psionically and then just, tore him apart. I believe he cast Power Word Kill on him. Because I love doing that as... that's a great spell for NPCs and villains to have. Power Word Kill. It's great for roleplay, but when you do it in a game, it feels very cheap and anticlimactic. Because, once you're down to a certain number of hit points. And that's a good reason to keep hit points secret. If someone asks, are they below certain threshold of hit points? Don't tell them how many hit points. Tell them how they're looking, what their condition is. Because if you say, yeah, he's under, I think it's 150 hit points for Power Word Kill, then they'll be like, oh yeah, cast Power Word Kill, and the fight's over. So make them guess. That's one thing that I think it was 4th edition did well, and this might have been in Pathfinder, but there were states like, staggered, bloodied, wounded. Having a percentage assigned to... a percentage of hit points assigned to a specific term would not go amiss in 5th edition, and I hope they correct that in a 5.5 or a 6th edition, whichever we're getting next. That needs to be a thing again. Because a lot of times, DMs will be like, yeah, he's got 50 hit points left. And I've been guilty of that too. But always keep the hit points secret. So that, if someone takes Power Word Kill, they have to guess when to use it. And that makes it a little bit better. So, anyway, they discover that this guy's a Sorcerer King. They begin to, have conversations with him. And they piece together that the client they're delivering the Sorcerer King to is a client, is the former Templars of Tyr. Because Tyr Sorcerer King was killed. He was murdered by heroes of the Dark Sun book series. That all happened in, the old 2nd edition Dark Sun modules. But I operated from the presumption that the events of, the first 3 novels had happened, but the heroes failed, and this was the world that was kind of left in its wake. So, in Tyr, they were basically trying to replace their Sorcerer King, and they had contacted this trading family who I believe is called Stell, House Stell. There we go. And what happened was the players decided they were not going to deliver him. They were going to kind of take matters into their own hands. And they went on a bunch of wild adventures that ultimately resulted in them going to Tyr and breaking into the Ziggurat, which is this big giant temple that was designed to turn a Sorcerer King into a dragon. Because dragons in the world of Athos aren't actual creatures. They are creatures of magic and psionics fused together, working in harmony. And there's only one. His name is Boris, and he lives somewhere... He lives somewhere out, like, in this area. He lives in the Tyr region. Like, his fortress is in the Tyr region. But he just kind of wanders the wastes. And if you run into him, you're screwed, because he's evil and he'll murder you. So they had their adventures in Tyr, and what they discovered in Tyr was, they... Actually, before they got to Tyr, they discovered the sunken citadel from, before the Sorcerer Kings had destroyed everything. It was actually standing during their siege. And the Sorcerer King... sorry, not the Sorcerer King. Boris defiled, 50 miles of land around it to sink the citadel. Inside the citadel, they discovered that someone had turned themselves into a lich. That someone was named Taj Falruk, and he is still around, he's still alive, and he wants to basically bring about the apocalypse, more so than has already been brought about on Athos, by bringing back the original guy who taught all the Sorcerer Kings. The Sorcerer Kings were acolytes of this guy named Rajet. And so basically, he wants to bring Rajet's soul back from the plane of the dead, bring it into himself, and remake Athos in his image. And so they are looking for... they had to go to Tyr to look for his spell book, which was in the Ziggurat. And now they're on a quest because they found a piece of this key. And there are two more pieces. One of them is down here in the city-state known as Balak. And then another one is all the way down here in the Deadland. And the Deadland is basically a land made of pure obsidian. And this is where the undead live. And it's a giant nightmare. So I'm looking forward to making them do that. But, just based on the map here, this is Tyr, and down here is Balak. And you will notice that Balak is right on the Silt Sea. So this is kind of the world that the players will be inhabiting. They'll be going from the city-state to another one, but one that is next to the Sea of Silt. And so you bet they will be on the Sea of Silt at least once, if not for most of the adventure. And there's all kinds of nightmares that they can encounter on the Silt Sea. There's this monster called a Silt Horror, which is basically a sand kraken that they'll probably have to fight at some point. There are these, manta rays that fly over top of the Silt Sea. There are giants that wander from island to island, and they literally just kind of wade through it. They're 25 feet tall giants. Excuse me. And they'll wade from island to island. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff, and there's going to be a dungeon when they get to the island that they'll have to go through to find this key. So, and that's not even like the beginning of the nonsense they're going to have to go through, because to start things off, to get out of the ziggurat without performing the dragon ritual, one of the things that the players had to do was rely on one of their fathers, who is kind of the dictator of the fire plane, as it were. Because the elemental planes, none of the planes are able to access Athos. Like the astral plane is cut off, all the other worlds are cut off. The gods have no influence over Athos. So, like clerics and paladins. Paladins straight up don't exist. Clerics are very different. They're like shamans. But the elemental plane and the plane of the dead, which is known as the Gray, they can still access Athos. The only thing is the elementals don't want to go there because they know, like, if we go there, that place is nonsense. It's chaos. But there are some elementals, namely the Drakes, who are kind of like lesser in the eyes of the elemental. And they will go to Athos and kind of wander around and make their dominion there. So the Drakes are basically your dragons. But they don't have wings. And they're giant, and you don't want to mess with them. So the ferrymen, I'm guessing, are you referring to like the ferryman of the River Styx? Because he is not explicitly there. However, he can definitely be put there. There would be, some kind of figure to usher you into the afterlife. So yeah, an Athasian version of the ferryman would be interesting. He'd probably be, because Athos has a lot of like insectoid beings and creatures. So the way I would do the ferryman, he'd probably be some kind of like giant beetle. Some kind of giant water beetle that would bring you over to the other side. Because making everything insects is one of my favorite things to do in Athos. There's a lot of creatures that straight up just don't exist. Like aberrations, because they come from other planes, or in my mind, other planets. They are not able to exist on Athos. So there's whole classes of the monster manual that just straight up don't exist, but there's also different creatures from Athos explicitly that you have to make up stats for, because there's no Dark Sun 5e, because Wizards doesn't like money. Or maybe does like money. We'll actually be discussing that on Monday. I'm glad you like that idea, Loopy, because I don't know. When I'm playing in this game, I love making everything grotesque insects. It's like playing David Cronenberg almost. Because there's so many just like bug things, and a way to make monsters exist in Athos that maybe wouldn't otherwise exist. And I did this explicitly. Oh, go for it. Go for it. I definitely want to see that. A giant, like, water beetle ferryman would be awesome. But one of the things that's a little bit weird, does it exist, can it exist in the world of Athos, is the Chimera, because the Chimera has dragon parts, and dragons don't really exist. And also, lions don't really exist in the way that you might think of them. There are, like, lion-type creatures. There are feline-esque creatures. There's, like, a six-legged saber-toothed tiger that's out there. A lot of this stuff is, like, metal versions of Napoleon Dynamite's Notebook. I don't know how well that reference will hit, but... like, you see the Liger in his notebook. That's probably a thing in Athos. But, yeah. So anyway, I made the Chimera partially an insect, which my players thought was freaky as shit. And they loved it. It had the same stats and everything, but I think instead of a ram's head, it was like a rhino beetle. And the lion was weirdly twisted as well. But yeah, making things that should not be insects is one of the best things about Athos. Especially, since some of your players are literally playing as insect men. The Thri-Kreen are a race that you can play in Athos, and they are basically giant mantis men. And I have 2 in my party. So playing around with insect stuff... if you don't like bugs, don't play this game, by the way. But playing around with insect stuff is one of the most fun things to do in the game. So, moving on from the map here, real quick, I want to show you guys some of the resources that I've been using, because as I said, there is no Dark Sun for 5e. So a lot of this has been homebrew. Some of it's been my own. A lot of it has come from DM Dave, who we've had on the show before. That was way, way back. But he's got a whole bunch of resources here, because he went through a big Dark Sun phase. I used Kelvin of Uruk as one of my NPCs. He's supposed to be kind of a neutral figure, because he's a traitor. I inadvertently made him straight up evil, in that I didn't mean for him to be evil. I meant for him to just be kind of aloof and not really care. And the players interpreted it as he is straight up evil. So he became a primary antagonist for them. And they killed him, because they hated him. Yes, you can make the centipede from James and the Giant Peach. In fact, that is actually a creature. Let me go to the bestiary here. Let me show you guys the Nightmare Beast real quick. Some of these stats are incredible. There's a picture. Let me find a better picture here. That's pulling up Twitter. I don't want to pull up Twitter. But that's pretty much, if you can see on the screen here, that's what a Nightmare Beast looks like. Let me see what that looks like for you guys. Over here off to the right, that is a Nightmare Beast. It is all teeth and evil. There is a Nightmare Beast in what looks like Neverwinter Nights. And let's see. Oh, here's another interesting thing to show you guys, just since we talked about giants. The 25-foot giants don't just have human faces, they also can have animal faces in Athos. So they can encounter like a pig-faced giant. So I'm looking forward to playing around with that. Here's another interesting character. I don't remember what this thing is called, but it's basically a giant turtle with cannons on its back. That, like, shoot webs and stuff that tie up the players. There's this creature called a gauge, which is basically a hermit crab of the desert that has psionic abilities and tentacles that can murder you. Here's the Kyrie, which is a six-legged tiger, basically, that has horns. If you look at it, it basically looks like the Liger from Napoleon Dynamite, but drawn better. Speaking of great cats, Nora is snoring. One of your beasts of burden here is the Mechalot, which is a giant lizard that you can... Actually, the Mechalots pull things. They're beasts of burden. Then there's the Inyx, which is also on here. That's a lizard that you can ride. It's basically the Athos equivalent of a horse. And then you have the Kank, which is a beetle that you can also ride. Also the Athos equivalent of a horse. There's a good picture of a Thri-kreen. And to answer Loopy's question here, this is the Megapede. And I'll pull up the stats for the Megapede. It is basically just like evil incarnate, though. Let's find the total bestiary here, which I might have passed. Nope, I have not passed it yet. I don't have to pull up the full bestiary because we have the Megapede right here. So yeah, it's a giant centipede. 16 AC, 297 hit points. It's a CR19, so this thing's a monster. It resists acid, cold, fire, lightning, psychic, and thunder damage. It's immune to poison damage, immune to being poisoned. Has 60 feet blind sight. It has advantage on dexterity stealth checks made to hide, which is a magical effect. And it has innate psionics. Wisdom is its casting ability. DC 14 plus 6 to hit with spell attacks. It can cast Magic Missile and Shield. 3 fireballs a day, and then Antipathy, Sympathy, and Disintegrate once per day. And at the start of its turn, it regains 30 hit points. It only dies if it starts its turn with 0 hit points. And it has legendary actions. It makes 6 attacks, 5 with its claws, which are plus 8 to hit for D6 slashing damage. And its bite deals 19 piercing damage, or 3d10 plus 3. Then you have to make a Constitution saving throw, or take 21 poison damage, or half as much on a successful save. This is Dave's stats for it. There are other stats for it. I have another Athos bestiary that I can use. But this thing's a nightmare. Pretty much everything on Athos is a nightmare. And I could not make Ronan a beast of burden if I wanted to, because Ronan is too spirited for that. Now, Elfie, you have gotten me... Or not Elfie, Loopy. Elfie is making me think of Snora, as is Snora, who I think you can see. Yes, James and the Giant Peach would definitely be a lot more fun if the centipede could shoot fireballs. But yeah, you've got me thinking, Loopy, what if you made James and the Giant Peach but set in Athos? It would be even more of a nightmare world. James's parents would have been killed by a rhino beetle instead of a rhino. That would be an interesting one-shot, to do James and the Giant Peach in Athos. I need to refamiliarize myself with that book. I remember that book being one of the first books I ever read that had curse words in it. I think I was in 3rd grade when we... Actually, no, I was in 2nd grade when we read it. And I remember the teacher was actually reading it aloud to the class just over snack time. And I went to a Christian school, and so the teacher got to those words... No, this was not 2nd grade, this was 4th grade. The teacher got to those words and just went, and the cricket says, or the grasshopper says some not nice words to this thing, and just kind of skipped over that section. And of course, as kids, we're like, what do you say? What do you say? Teacher's not going to say that out loud. So, anyway, that's one of the resources that I've been using. Another resource that I've been using for this particular campaign, we'll get to this map in just a second. One of the resources I've been using has been the 4th edition campaign guide for it. Yeah, the parties of the insects. And that I don't know how to feel about that. Because on one hand, that sounds cool, but on the other hand, everyone hates escort missions. That does get around the whole, one of you is James and therefore more important than the others, though. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, the Dark Sun campaign setting for 4th edition. This is one of the easier resources to get, just to get an understanding of Athos. Because if you get the 2nd edition stuff, 2nd edition Dark Sun was very heavy on meta plot, because that's what 2nd edition was all about. If you look at anything from 2E, as far as, like Dragonlance, or even some of the Forgotten Realms stuff, definitely Dark Sun, a lot of it is based around a meta plot. And, that's... 2nd edition is where, guys like Shane Hensley cut their teeth as far as designing. So that's why a lot of Savage World stuff is very metaplot heavy, too. But this book basically cut away a lot of the dead weight. Well, dead weight's the wrong way to say it because it was cool, but very dense. It cut away a lot of the extra stuff of Dark Sun that happened in the novels and happened in the previous adventures, and basically said only the first book happened in the Dark Sun meta plot. Only the first novel, the Troy Denning novel, which I currently can't remember the name of. I've read it, though. And, this is basically the world that you live in. There's some great art here. And this is a good resource, even if the stats don't necessarily work. It's a good resource for knowing kind of what is and is not in Athos. And for knowing, what kind of things are around. And there's some, like I said, there's some great artwork here. Artwork for the malls. I've shown this before, but this is a 4th edition book. There are 3rd edition resources, but 3rd edition is kind of where Athos died off, and there's not any 3.5 books. They tried to bring it back for 4th, and it didn't necessarily sell as well as they thought it would. That might be down to it being 4th edition, and not a lot of people liked 4th edition. So I'm willing to blame it on that, but... Anyway, that's a resource that you can definitely go for. And to switch over for just a second, to show you guys a couple things about Dark Sun that are new since I started the campaign. I'll go ahead and show you some of the additions that make Dark Sun a little bit better in, once again, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So Tasha's Cauldron really kind of piled on the psionics. You know, if we scroll down a good bit, and, you know, we take a look at some of the options, especially around, like if you look at Barbarian, Path of Wild Magic could easily be like a psionic Barbarian. And if we go specifically to Fighter, what you have here are, you know, you have the Psi Warrior, who is, you know, like explicitly something that you could throw into a Dark Sun campaign very easily. And then you have the Rune Knight, who would also work very well in Dark Sun. And then if we go back up to the top here, just to get back to the credits here, where's the Rogue? The Soul Knife Rogue. The Phantom Rogue would also work, but the Soul Knife Rogue, explicitly. This is the class that's basically Psylocke from X-Men. So you'd be able to do that very easily in Athos. I think there's a sorcerer... there's a sorceress origin, I think, that's very psionic heavy as well. Aberrant Mind, that's what it is. Yeah, Aberrant Mind is definitely something that could work very well in Athos. Warlocks are very difficult in Dark Sun. Basically, the only Warlock option you have is to be a Templar. And so you're a Warlock of the Sorcerer King. You could definitely flavor any Warlock patron into being a... The only one you couldn't do here is the Fathomless, because there's no water on Athos. The Genie might be interesting on Athos. And then Wizard, I don't know if there are any... Blade Singing works on Athos. Scribes would probably work too. But it's not like, you know, explicitly designed for using psionics. So back up to the top we go again, and let's go down to the spells here. Because a lot of these spells are very, very focused on psionics. Oh yeah, Warlocks are a ton of fun. I'm playing a Warlock right now in Five Elders, and I love playing Warlocks. Warlocks are going to end up being like my main caster class moving forward, if I don't go with an Artificer. Someday I will try a Wizard, though. So yeah, let's start off at 108. Take a look at what we have here. So starting off, I mean, Intellect Fortress is a third level abjuration, but this is a psionic ability it's very much, someone's using a homebrewed Intellect Fortress in my game currently. But this protects you from, you know, mental attacks. Mind Sliver is also very heavily focused on psionics, as you can see here. It also, you know, reduces saving throws, which is great. Yeah, having 0 healers can be rough. And there's a couple other spells here that do very well psionically. And then I talked about this when I was reviewing this, but here it is. Tasha's Mind Whip. That artwork, first of all, is straight up Dark Sun. It's the desert. He's got an obsidian dagger. They've got bone weapons. Those are gnolls. The only issue here is that looks like a dark elf, and there are no drow on Athos. But still, we'll let it go because everything else is perfect. But yeah, Tasha's Mind Whip, second level spell. That's definitely a psionic ability. So yeah, that's a lot of what's going on. There's a couple magic items too that definitely allow for psionics a little bit more so than would normally be around. Let's see. One of the grimoires is specifically psionic. So let's see. Arcane Grimoires. No, it's not one of the grimoires. It is... It's something... It's the crystal something. Some of these shards might be good for psionics as well. Maybe not. We're almost there. I should have just gone back up. Maybe I passed it. I definitely passed it. Let's see. There it is. Crystalline Chronicle, I believe. Maybe? Anyway, one of the spell books that you can find in here is specifically focused on psionics. Oh, Loopy has recruited a friend to template out the James the Giant Peach one-shot. I love it. So yeah, these are some of the resources that you can use. One other resource I want to talk about while we're here is... This is one of the campaigns from 2E Dark Sun called City by the Silt Sea. This right here is the dragon they had to create to replace Boris. He's like an undead mega dragon. This is one of the ones that Shane Hensley worked on. And basically, this is a good resource on, like what's in the Silt Sea, what kind of stuff is out there. Dragoth is the undead dragon king. And then the Dre are like dragonborn, basically. There will be a lot of Dre in my setting. or especially here in this particular section, because if we go into the campaign setting for 4th edition, and we take a look at the at Balak on page 144. The Sorcerer King of Balak is... Where is he? There might be a separate section for the Sorcerer Kings. Where are they? Maybe they're here at the beginning. Because there is in this book a list of like the Sorcerer Kings and what they do. I know I'm not just making this up. This is ridiculous. Okay, there he is. His name is Androponus. And let me see if I can get a picture of him, because Androponus' thing is he basically tried to make himself a dragon. But he failed. I think I have the right guy. I may be thinking of a completely different Sorcerer King there, which is entirely possible. Okay, yeah, I was completely wrong. So yeah, Androponus is not the Sorcerer King of Balak. Or no, Androponus is the Sorcerer King of Balak. He is not the undead dragon that I was thinking of. But yes, there are dragon people around. They're called the Dre, and according to this resource, let me make sure that's still showing. There's got to be somewhere where you can get that poster, and you're right, that would be an epic poster. So let's go down to that. See if there's another picture of him. The Undead Dragon King. There is not, but you can see his stats here. My god. And there are the Dre. And so basically the Dre come from Dragoth performing experiments basically to turn humans into a new race, and that race ended up being the Dre, who are dragon people. So they're around. And I'm probably going to fold those. I'm probably going to fold some of Dragoth's accomplishments into Boris, because Boris is around and Dragoth isn't in my game. But yes, Dragoth does look very awesome. I'll show that picture one more time. Because, I mean, just, God, look at that. Anyway. One of the last things I want to show you guys before we... I should create an item for Twisted Tea. I suppose I could. I've never had Twisted Tea. I'm generally opposed to tea that comes from a can, though. So yeah, let's real quick switch on over to the maps to talk a little bit about what I have planned so far. So, I've got a couple maps planned already for what the adventure is going to turn into. So, starting off, this is the Fire Plain, and this is the fortress of Cinder's father, and I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head. I'll have to ask the player who's playing Cinder. Cinder is she's a fire genasi. And her father has basically become like dictator of the Fire Plain. And he's in league with the bad guy. He's in league with Tash Falrouk. Which they already suspect but don't know. So, what happened towards the end of the campaign is to get out of the ziggurat without performing the dragon ritual, which they were not capable of doing. They would have died. They had to make a deal that Cinder would return to the Fire Plain to see her father. I needed to fix that, because that mountain should be over top of the tower. And so, at some point, it might even be right after they leave, they are going to have to go to the Fire Plain. And I don't know if it's going to immediately be a battle between her father and the party. I don't know if they will immediately be shuffled off, or if it'll happen just kind of at an inconvenient time. I'm still deciding, but this is where they go. And there are ships. They won't be like wooden ships because that makes no sense. But there are ships that ferry people kind of in and out of this place. These dragons here are going to be more like firebirds. And they're basically just, again, another form of transportation. So the players will be riding on a ship or riding on one of these things to take them to the various places. And the way that it's kind of set up here, the ships would take them to the central area, and then these firebirds would take them to the different places. I think they'll think that's cool. I hope they think that's cool. So yeah, that's kind of the fire plane that we'll be playing around with when it comes time for Cinder to face her father. We'll come back to that. This is the next kind of immediate place that I have planned for them. This is a town that I created called Durlax's Pit. And I'm obsessed with gladiator stuff in my D&D games. I have not played a single game where there's not been an arena. There's already been an arena in this game, but I'm doing another one because I can. And so this is going to be, and I think I've thought of a way to get them here. But, I'll have to play around with that a little bit. But this is going to be one of the oases that they'll basically be drawn to. And what's going to end up happening is, this entire town is built around this arena. There are only 2 actual standing, stone structures. This house over here is where that's where the gladiators live. And this over here is their training ground. Everything else is tents, merchants built around, the people congregating for these fights. One of the players, Claw, is a pit fighter, a former gladiator. So he'll be familiar with this town, and he'll kind of be the one who knows, this is, I'll do it in his voice, this is Durlax's Pit. The whole town is built around the arena. That hurts. God, that hurts. I don't know how Kevin does it when we play. So yeah, this is the arena that's built around. There are no stands in Incarnate, so that's why those are stone walls. Those are supposed to be the arena stands. And my contrivance for them having to compete in this arena will likely be revolving around the Argosy that they hijacked. So, along the way, they angered the Templars of Tyr. So they sent an Argosy after them, which is basically a land ship. Like a land battleship. It's this giant, battle wagon. And they hijacked it. They snuck onto the Argosy, took out the commander, and basically talked the crew, who were mostly conscripts, into working for them. So they have this giant land boat that I want to take away from them for a time. They'll get it back. I'm not going to completely take it away. I'm not going to destroy it. But one thing I'm going to do to kind of, keep the story moving is Boris. They've upset Boris already. One of the players has. Boris is going to take revenge on them. And he's going to kidnap their Sorcerer King. Cass is his name. Or Kaz. K-A-Z. They're going to kidnap him. Boris is going to kidnap him. And he's also going to take my planes-hopping Cromwell Prime, who has also showed up in this game. He's going to kidnap him as well. And then the Argosy is going to be taken over by pirates, who will take it to this place. And what's going to end up happening is, if they want their Argosy back, they're going to have to fight for it. Because all commerce, with the exception of, these vendors, all commerce, all justice is handled in this arena. So that's my master plan for the next couple sessions. There's going to be something in the fire plane, and then they're going to have to deal with this arena battle to get their argosy back. And this is the map I made of the arena. And I'll be importing this into Roll20 for them to use. So yeah, that so far is what I have planned for them. Ultimately, their destination is Balak by the Silt Sea. There's going to be some stop-offs in the Fire Plane and in Durlac's Pit. And they're going to kind of continue on the story, and at the end of the season, they're going to, hopefully, if they don't die, find another key to get into Taj Rook's palace, which, just so everyone knows, is in the Dead Zone, the Dead Lands, that obsidian place, the black place down at the bottom of the map that I showed you earlier. So, yeah, that's Dark Sun in a nutshell. That's my version of Dark Sun. I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Last time we had a great time playing it. Everyone got super invested in their characters. They were a little bit sad to leave them. So it'll be cool to, get back to it. It hasn't been that terribly long. Only, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, maybe? It's the last time we played. Or last time we played Dark Sun, we've been playing Five Elders. It's the same group I play Five Elders with. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing, how people react to this situation. So yeah, guys, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun talking about this. I love, talking about Athos, talking about James and the Giant Peach, talking about coffee. We'll definitely do more of this. On Monday, Venger Satanis will be returning, and he and I are going to have a conversation about, RPG content, and it's going to go in some interesting directions. I'm not gonna give up too much of what we're talking about here, but we've got something planned. We've already talked about it, and we're going to have a very in-depth discussion. Venger's only going to be on for about an hour, so I'll go for a little bit after that. Just kind of, unpacking what we discussed, talking a little bit about other things, and that'll be the episode for tomorrow. So, or not tomorrow, Monday. So, Venger Satanis will be on Monday. And then, next Saturday, The Phylactery 2 by Levi Combs of Planet X Games is out, digitally. It's out on PDFs. Backers have their PDFs. So I'm going to be looking over the PDF of Phylactery 2, talking about the contents, and giving you guys a review of that great zine from Zine Quest. Levi always does a great job, so I'm looking forward to reading more of his work. He'll be on the show again sometime in the spring. And yeah, that's really what's coming up. So guys, thank you so much for joining me, and remember, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I am so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I'll see you next time.